You're listening to Solo in the Shop. This is episode 27, and today I'm going to discuss a few things, lessons from the past, and then my struggles with the quest for good wood. Let's dive in. Whether you are a hobbyist, weekend warrior, making commissions for friends and family, or already a full-time maker, if you are solo in your shop, this is the show for you. I'm Ronald Lowe's, the host of Solo in the Shop, a woodworking podcast discussing everything from current projects, tools and techniques, decisions around running a small business, and much more. So if you frequently find yourself alone and covered in sawdust, follow my journey and we can be solo in the shop together. Hello, friends. It is, if you're listening to this live, September 4th, and everyone's back at school, which is kind of nice. There's a little bit of chill in the air in New England, a little nippy out, which does not mean that I'm recording this without a shirt on. Getting ready for the school year included hemming skirts for my wife's youngest daughter, who's going to Catholic high school. She started Catholic high school this week, and she had a bunch of skirts that were significantly too long. They fit in the waist, and it was funny to me to think back and realize that I was tapped to hem those because I had sewing experience, and it took me, just because of logistics, not because I'm slow, but it took me a couple days just because there were things going on, and I had to find the time to do it between other stuff that was going on. But what occurred to me was growing up with a mother who was on the sewing machine quite a bit. She had a career, but she also had a hobby and made clothes, and she had probably a little better setup than most amateurs. She had one of those sizable busts that she could measure someone, adjust her sizing dummy so that she could make clothes for someone else and have them essentially have this dummy as a proxy so that she could fit things to it. And it was kind of a constant growing up. She was always sewing, and the kids, myself, my sister, and my brother, couldn't help but learn. She was very eager to show us how to use the sewing machine. She eventually got a serger, which is a magical sewing machine, and we learned these things. And here it is, I'm 58 right now, and was still the go-to guy for pulling out the sewing machine and having these skirts. And it just occurred to me that there's a lot of things in life where you grew up picking up things and you didn't know that you were learning things that you were taking with you forever. There are some things that it's obvious, and then there are some things that it's not until something happens that you look back and you say, oh yeah, no, I learned how to fish, and all these things, and you bring those with you. Now the same has been true for my woodworking, and I don't talk too much on the podcast about my dad and our relationship and how that was. He passed a couple years ago now, but he was kind of where the woodworking came from, and I didn't have, the traditional wood shop at school. We just always had a wood shop at home. He was in the Air Force. We moved around a ton, but the wood shop followed us around. That's where I learned woodworking, tool safety, and things like that, was working with him in the shop. Now, that sounds charming, but I will tell you this. My dad grew up in a tough household. His mother was very tough on him. Then he joined the Air Force. And while I may consider that one of the softer branches of the military, it is still military. That is kind of how our household was. I would characterize my dad as mean, strict, cruel, and at times brutal, and really not a good parent. And I mean that in the sense that he didn't know what he was doing and he was bad at it. I grew up with a lot of animosity towards him, enough so that there was a time when I went digging through all the personal files that were in storage in our basement. We had like file cabinets and stuff like that. And I went digging through there to see if I was adopted, because I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that a parent would treat their child the way he treated me. And it's interesting to me that I got through that, out of the house, went to school, got married, had my own kids. Eventually that marriage ended, got remarried. I have 2 stepchildren, and his parenting style did not rub off on me. But his sense of how to take care of tools, how to be safe in the shop, to anticipate what you and others are going to need as a task proceeds, those things all stuck with me. And so I look at that whole experience kind of like packing for vacation. That may sound crazy, but bear with me. When you're getting ready to go on vacation, you know what kind of activities and how long you're going to be gone and what the weather is going to be like. And so you pack for what's coming, and you pack what you need. You don't bring your uncomfortable shoes. You don't bring a parka when you're going to the beach. You bring what you need and you leave what you don't want. And that's kind of how I'm viewing my takeaways from growing up with my dad, was that there are things that I choose to put in my suitcase and take with me, and there are things that just don't fit me. And so I left those, and I'm not going back for them. So that's a little deep for Solo in the Shop, but that's a little insight into kind of what I view as my origin for making. It just kind of occurred to me because of hemming skirts, believe it or not. The other thing that's going on is I've got a couple projects. One is really committed. I've got the legs for it and I've got a deposit and I need to make it. And it's a small work desk, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling to find the wood for it. And it's not that I can't find a nice piece of walnut, but what I'm struggling with is it's a small desk. I can't charge the guy the price that it would cost me for a full slab of walnut. So it becomes a challenge to find a small piece of walnut that's suitable for the job, that is within the budget that I've set, which is essentially 50% of the cost of the project. And it's been a real struggle. I think even some of my go-to stores, like retail places, have really not been able to provide the variety of sizes and thicknesses and widths that I'm used to seeing. And it's been a challenge finding this piece of wood. Enough so that I started looking on Facebook Marketplace. But even that is fraught with problems. You know, when you buy wood out of someone's backyard, you don't know what you're going to get when you get that layer of gray off of it. You know, are there going to be stains? Are there going to be nails? Is there going to be imperfections that you can't get past? And those are expensive problems. I thought I had a piece of wood that was going to work great, and I actually drove pretty far to go look for it and go look at it. And I got there, and yeah, the piece of wood was a little bigger than I wanted, but the guy knew that he had great walnut. And you know, I've charged my client $650, I think, for this desk. And this guy wanted $800 for essentially a 7-foot long piece of walnut. And it was just crazy. I'm like, you're selling it out of your backyard and you're selling it for a board foot price that's double what I can get retail. I felt so angry that I had driven all the way out there to look at this wood, and the guy was like, yeah, no, it's going to be $800. And I was like, that's just craziness. So it's a lot of driving. I ended up driving to another place. They had nothing. I started thinking about reaching out to a couple friends of mine who mill wood and see if they have anything that's dry that I could look at. That's probably going to be my next option. I've got a little more driving to do today to go look at some stuff. I have another potential client. It's a pretty strong possibility. I mean, she's said, build this for me. We just need to work out the details. Who wants, I'll call it a funky coffee table. By funky, I just mean she doesn't want a rectangle. She wants something even more than live edge. Imagine a table made out of a giant teak cookie, something like that. That's also challenging to find. Now, I'm not on a budget for that one because I can find the wood and then say, I found this, it costs this much. Is that in your budget? Is it pretty enough for you to spend that kind of money on it? But man, finding good wood has been challenging for the last month or so. The last thing I wanted to talk about real quick is just inspiration. It's funny that, I mentioned a couple shows ago that I went to a Shaker museum and was looking at furniture there. I've been looking at picking up some refinishing education because I'm thinking about refinishing chairs rather than building chairs. And I also subscribe to Architectural Digest, and unlike some magazines, I don't get it for the articles. I get it for the pictures. I leaf through it, and every time I do, I see dining tables and coffee tables and side tables and hall tables, just tables of all kinds that I'm like, man, I would love to make that. And somehow I've got to figure out how to find the time and the resources to do that, because there's so much that I want to make that goes beyond the demand of my customers for live edge tables and glued up rectangles. I go to the Our House stores, I get their catalog, same thing. It's just so many tables. And everywhere I go, I'm looking at the table. I'm feeling around underneath to see what kind of support it has. What kind of, does it have steel, C channels in there, or did they do something else? The V-bars. And inspiration is everywhere. It gets me excited to make tables. I'm glad that, it's my full-time job and I really have not lost the passion for it. I do have big news coming, I hope. It's a secret right now. All I can do is tease it, but I am working on some big changes for me and my company. Stay tuned for that. That is coming hopefully in the next week or two. We'll see how that goes. It's not entirely up to me. There's other powers that have to align and make it happen, but we will see how it goes. That is what I have for you today. Enjoy your September. I love the cooling weather. Halloween's just around the corner. Love it. All right, stay safe, and I will talk to you again soon. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to reach out to me at SoloInTheShop@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you got value from it and would like to help the show grow, I'd appreciate a review wherever you listen. Be sure to check the show notes for links to my socials or any extra stuff we discussed today. Until next time, stay safe in your shop, and we'll talk again soon.